Welcome back to Cord Cutting Today, where we break down some of the biggest stories happening in the world of cord cutting, including Disney has shut down its cable TV networks in 20 countries. We'll tell you what's happening, or at least some of its cable TV networks have been. Also, Roku's OS 15, we got an update. We talked about it happening last week. We got some news this week. Also, Netflix is making a change a lot of us have wanted. We'll tell you what it is and more here in a quick second. It was a very busy weekend. So if you want to learn more about any of the stories I'm about to talk about, I'll put a link to each story in the show notes and in the first pinned comment so you can read them for yourself, come up with your own opinions. I'd love to hear from you. If you're new here, do me a favor, hit that subscribe button, hit that thumbs up. Doing one or both lets YouTube know you enjoy what we do here, so YouTube recommends our videos to more people, helping us grow and hopefully helping you break free from the high cost of TV and still watch the shows you enjoy. All right, let's dive into it. Disney has now shut down its major cable networks in over 20 countries, mostly targeting things like the Disney Channel, Disney Junior, even some other Disney-owned properties. Now, this has been happening over the last 5 years, and this year it hit about 20 countries here with this. We're going to have a few highlights with this, including starting off in 2020 with Australia, United Kingdom, Italy, Germany, France, and more. More recently, this year was France, Spain, Brazil. We also seen some areas like in 2021, we saw Southeast Asia with Singapore, Malaysia, Indonesia, Thailand, Philippines, the Nordic countries like Sweden, Denmark, Norway, and Finland were shut down in 2021, and more. Other areas like Russia, New Zealand, Turkey, South Korea, and more have joined this list. This has raised a lot of questions about what's happening here. What seems to be happening is increasingly they're pushing people to Disney Plus in these markets. UK being a great example. Pretty much got rid of all of its cable networks over there and is pushing people heavily into its cable TV markets to encourage people to not watch their cable, but to pay for streaming. I suspect that this is going to come to the United States, that, well, maybe not tomorrow, maybe not this year or next year. I do think that this is the inevitable movement that we'll see this come to North America, which is interesting because the United States for a long time was a leader in the world of cord cutting. We were one of the early countries to really lean into it because we were one of the early countries with streaming like we have today. Now, though, it's flipped around a little bit. You know, the media companies like Disney are still desperately trying to hold on to what little profit they can get from cable TV, and with that, they are not letting it go. We'll keep a close eye on this, but mark my words, many cable networks in 2025 and more likely into 2026 and 2027 will shut down. We've already seen some networks, both big and small, from Universal Kids to some HBO and Cinemax channels shutting down this year. I think we're only going to see the tip of the iceberg with more coming soon. We'll watch it closely, but Disney is not alone in shutting down networks, and I think we're just seeing the start. All right, next up, Roku OS 15. We talked about it last week. It's coming. A lot of under-the-hood improvements in this. Roku often rolls out an OS and then we find out more later, but we talked about how it was in beta testing with developers last week. Now we've received word from several readers that Roku OS 15 is rolling out. Seems to be very little change on the front end. A lot of the changes seem to be on the under the hood part, bug fixes, speed improvements, tools for developers to make better apps, and more with it. Now, unfortunately, right now, it's rolling out to a very small segment of people, and it either is going to update to your Roku or it's not. Roku often does this. They put it out to, it seems like a handful, but it's probably tens of thousands of people across the country. Start off with a few hundred, then go to a few thousand, then tens of thousands. And they closely monitor looking for bug fixes, which is great. I just had this over the weekend. I had an Android phone. I absolutely love my Android phone, but suddenly I got constant error messages. Google stopped working. I couldn't make text messages. I couldn't use maps. It was crashing all the time. I constantly had to reboot it. And I thought, I dropped it one too many times. If you know me, I'm kind of prone to that. I broke something on it. Well, I went and bought a new one, and that phone connected to my account was doing the same thing. Turned out to be I was in a Google beta test group for the Google app, Google services and more. And something with that beta update that had come out was wrong, and that resulted in widespread errors. I went and bought a new phone thinking I broke mine. Turned out it was actually a Google issue, and they rolled out a fix over the weekend. Now I got 2 perfectly good phones, which is fine. You know, I'm so dependent on my phone for work, I'll keep a backup. Not the end of the world. I asked my wife if she wants it, and she's happy with her phone right now, so I'll keep it as a spare. But that's what Roku's looking for. They're looking for glitches like that in Roku. So hang tight. I'm sure it'll get a widespread rollout in the next few weeks, but if you are not a part of it, you're going to have to wait and see what happens. All right, next up, Netflix has made a big change, something we've all wanted them to do, even if you didn't know it, but it's finally here. Now, this was spotted by What's on Netflix First. Great shout out to them. They do great work. Check them out for all things Netflix. But they've created a new category in the Netflix app that allows you to see Last Chance to Watch. This gives you a spot where all the content about to leave Netflix is found. Now, Netflix, to keep costs down, regularly adds new stuff, but to help keep the costs down, they remove older stuff. So we'll keep an eye on it. But keep an eye on this. Netflix now has a Last Chance to Watch. If you want to learn how to find it and more, check out our story in the show notes down below. A lot more happening. Now, we talked about recently Warner Brothers Discovery and Paramount are in talks for a potential merger. Well, apparently, according to a report from Bloomberg News over the weekend, Warner Brothers Discovery has rejected the initial offer for it, basically saying they want more money. Not a big surprise now. Now, there are still reports that talks are still happening, but you often get this with sales, right? The buyer wants to offer low, the seller wants high, and you try to find a deal somewhere in the middle. And often the buyers want to offer low and try to work their way up because they don't want to overpay, right? If you go straight to the high, maybe they would have accepted a little bit less. So the question now becomes, and I used to be a realtor, so I'm used to this dance, right? You start here, and then, the seller's here, the buyer's there, and you negotiate. Well, hey, we'll give you a few more extra $1,000, but then we want occupancy faster. Or, hey, so you want $10,000 more, but well, if you throw in your patio set, we kind of like it. Why don't you leave that? So there's certain things like that are happening. Now, this is totally different scale than buying a home, but the same concept is happening. They're negotiating both on price and maybe terms. How much of this is cash? How much is stock? Well, we'll accept a little bit less, but we want more of it in cash kind of offer. We'll wait and see how this all plays out. Or maybe it's also things like, hey, Paramount, well, yeah, we'll accept less, but then you have to absorb some of our debt. That way, for us, we still get the same amount of cash we want. You pay less, but have to pay off some of our debt. We'll see how this plays out, but I don't think the deal's done, but it's definitely far from a done deal. We'll keep a close eye on this. Paramount and Warner Bros. Discovery could merge, and a big part of this has to do with merging Paramount Plus and HBO Max to create a massive streaming service. We'll see if it actually happens. Could not. Totally could not happen. They could fail to reach any potential deal, but it's still on the table. All right, today, TV history, a big one over the weekend happened. And I kind of, I know they talked a lot about it, but I felt like it slipped a little bit through the radar. But over the weekend, Saturday Night Live celebrated its 50th anniversary, and it kind of redefined late night television on weekends with it. I was kind of amazed. I was watching the Michigan USC game. Unfortunately, Michigan lost. I didn't really think they were going to win that one. But with that, there were some Saturday Night Live commercials. I just kind of thought they didn't really make as big of a deal of it as I was expecting them to. Are you a Saturday Night Live fan? I'll be honest, I never really have been. I've watched clips here and there, little bits. There's some funny stuff. I've never been somebody who says, oh, I'm going to watch Saturday Night Live. Let me know if you are. All right, now I get a lot of questions about this. Why do streaming services still ask, are you still watching? Yes or no. And if you don't reply, it stops the stream. Now, we often do the Ask Luke series where I try to answer some of the most common questions I get, and this was one I wanted to answer because I've been getting a lot. And it comes down to a few things. First of all, cost. Not only do streaming services pay to get rights to stuff, they often pay by how often people are watching. And if you're leaving King of the Hill on while you fall asleep, Hulu or wherever it is may be paying the creators rights to that for when actually no one's really watching because you're sound asleep. 2, it actually costs a good amount of money to stream content. While each individual stream is not that expensive, by the millions it adds up over time. And so by cutting off streams when no one's actually watching it, maybe you have a separate Roku or Fire TV box, you turn off your TV, but because you didn't actually stop the stream, the TV's off, the stream is still running, kind of situations. So keep an eye on it. Those are the 2 main reasons why they do that. Some services allow you to disable it, some do not for those reasons. All right, next up, what streaming players do cord cutters plan to buy this year? Holiday buying season is almost here. We asked 1,200 of you which devices you were planning to buy if you plan to buy one this year. Now, of those 1,200, Roku was the #1 choice. It was a pretty substantial lead, but coming in second, and actually closer than we've seen in years past, was the Apple TV at 6%. 2.4% of you said a Google TV device, and then 2.1% of you said a Fire TV. Now, interestingly, the vast majority of you do not plan to buy a new streaming device, with 78% of you saying you're very happy with what you have now. Of course, if that changes, like me, and you think you broke your phone, and maybe your stream player stops working, or you have a child like I do who throws a ball into the TV. Thankfully, he hasn't broke it yet, but no more balls allowed in the living room. And you suddenly need one. We're going to have all the best deals over at cordcuttersnews.com. Make sure to check out our deal tab. We're regularly posting deals. There was a lot of good ones last week. We'll see more coming up in the weeks to come. So check that out. Also this week, the FCC late last week announced a potential rule change that would make it easier for internet providers to hide bills. Now, recently a new law came in that required nutrition-style billings, you probably labels, which clearly laid out all kinds of information about what the current price is on things, fees, average advertised speed, and average actual reached speeds with this. According to a report by The Verge, there's been a proposal that would both remove some burdensome labels and confusion to customers by trying to streamline this, change how those look, and change what is required to be in it. Now, critics have argued that will allow cable TV companies to, and internet and all internet providers to slip in some fees on this. We'll keep an eye on this. For now, it's a proposal. We'll see how it actually gets ironed out. Tell you, the cable providers would love to get rid of that and be able to kind of just not have to fully disclose everything once again. And lastly, we talked a little bit about the success Netflix has had with sports over the last few weeks. Well, the CEO has come out at an event and said they have no intention of bidding on more sports. I talked about that last week, particularly the NFL. Now, I think that's interesting. I wanted to throw one idea out here. Don't completely count Netflix out. A lot of people thought that meant they were going to drop out of the Sunday or Christmas Day, I should say, NFL games that they have for the next couple years. I would suspect that they're going to try to keep that, if not expand it. It just means that for now, the idea of Netflix picking up like Sunday afternoon games is not there. But the NFL is not done with Netflix, and Netflix is not done with the NFL. They have a contract for a few more years to air Christmas Day NFL games, so we'll keep a close eye on that. Just wanted to kind of touch base because I saw some confusion related to that story last week, so I wanted to answer that. Yes, Netflix is not necessarily considering buying for additional games at this moment. It doesn't mean that they're going to stop airing the NFL games on Christmas Day they currently have, and it does not mean that they won't try to continue doing that in the future. Well, that's it for today. I hope you have a fantastic day. Take care. Be safe. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Don't forget to hit that thumbs up. Do it one or both. Let's YouTube know you enjoy what we do here.